This conference will now be recorded.
Okay, don't panic, everyone. We're not going to record your private angst or questions. We're just going to record the session and Jill's presentation and process. Thank you all very much for coming along this morning and volunteering. This is a new adventure for us, and we are delighted to welcome Jill Fitzgibbon, who's there on your screen, the Life Force coach. And Jill is going to give us a demonstration, talk to us about the benefits of coaching for resilience and goal setting. And then she's going to run us through the process, which will be private when we do that. And then at the end, we'll have some feedback on how we found the experience and any questions that you want to ask. And also if you would like to get in touch with Jill privately. So it is interactive. I would suggest at this beginning stage and for the coaching, we do you do go on mute because it'll improve the sound quality and will also mask out any aberrant doorbells or telephone calls, which will help. But then we will switch back on in the last 15 minutes or so. And have some feedback and questions. So hope you've all got your pen and paper so that you can participate. No pressure. It's not exposing you in any way, and hopefully you will find this demonstration both interesting and practically useful. Just before I hand over to Jill, we are grateful today to our sponsor, Perspective Research Services, who are a fieldwork agency, very experienced and able to provide you with data at every stage of your journey. You can use their full range of services as an end-to-end experience, or you can simply dip into individual services as and when you need. So thank you to Perspective. So without further ado, I am going to hand over to Jill, the Life Force coach. We're going to have a very screen sharing, so I will turn off my screen share, Jill, and hand over to you. Thank you and good luck.
Thank you. Well, thank you, Jane, for that lovely introduction, and I hope you're not going to be all too disappointed now after that big build-up. But I'm delighted to be here today to give you an idea of what coaching is all about, and I hope you're going to enjoy what you experience. So the first thing I'm going to ask you is, how are you feeling today? There are lots of moods there to pick from, but the reason I ask that question is because it's always good at the beginning of the day to think about your state. So for example, if you're a person who's actually quite relaxed normally, a bit gung-ho, things don't really worry you, say you wake up in the morning and suddenly you've got to pitch for a really important project and you're feeling very apprehensive. And you know when you feel apprehensive that actually it doesn't do you good because your presentation skills won't be the way they should be because you're normally very relaxed. So it's a good idea to think of how you're feeling when you're about to prepare for the day and do the things that would help you get back into your normal state. So on the morning of that important pitch for this job you want to do, you might think, okay, I'm normally a relaxed person. So what I'll do is I'll do a bit of meditation, or maybe you like to go for a walk. For me, it's walking. I love to go for a walk and clear my head. It might be that you decide to listen to a bit of music. So it is an important thing to remember what your base state is, if you like. So, oops, hang on now, what's happened here? Okay, one sec, guys, sorry. The screen won't share the next slide. 1 second.
If you scroll rather than click, Jill, it might help. There you go.
Scroll it over, just took a minute, I think. Thank you. So what is coaching? I'm not sure how many of you here have experienced coaching before, But just to give you a little idea of the difference between coaching and other things that people talk about, which they consider maybe to be coaching. So coaching is all about getting you from where you are now to where you want to be. So that's the whole nub of coaching, is setting goals that you want to achieve. And with a coach, it's all about going forward. So as a coach, I'm a bit like a signpost, because I believe you have all the answers yourself, but I'm just there to point you in the right direction with particular questions and techniques that we use to help you come to the point where you realize, actually, that's what I need to do if I want to get to where I want to be. Counselling is very different. Counselling looks back at past events, and it could be a trauma somebody has actually experienced in life, which is actually impacting on how they're living their life today. So by counselling, they would be able to go back and what they call reframing, or changing that timeline, which comes into NLP practitioners do, and I'm an NLP practitioner as well. So you can go back and you can timeline frame things again in a different way, so that people can actually live now looking without having that trauma hanging over them. And the other thing is mentoring. So some people think a coach is a mentor, but they're not. So a mentor is much more giving advice. So I have a couple of businesses, so somebody might come to me and say, oh, Jill, how do you set up a business? I've no clue about anything, but I have this great idea and I need to set up a business. And as a mentor, I would give them the benefit of my wisdom, if you like. So when I set up my business, and the pitfalls and what I did and didn't do right. And then the final thing would be consultancy. And the consultancy would be going into a company and planning a strategy. So you might be going to a big company and saying, okay, I want to double my workforce, or I want to double my profit, and a consultant would go in and do all that for you. So thing of today's focus was why goal setting and resilience go hand in hand. So there's many definitions of the word resilience, as you can see from the slide up there. It's the capacity to recover quickly. It's recovering from it, or adjusting easily to change, and the ability to be happy and successful again when you've had some sort of setback, and it doesn't have to be an enormous setback. I mean, I'm not talking about something like a death or anything like that, but it could be just something in your career or something, and it's that absolute ability to be able to say, look, things will get better, and I will be able to survive. So we're all resilient to some lesser or bigger degree. So we all face challenges, and we all find them difficult or easier to overcome. It just depends on the sort of person you are. And resilience is ordinary. It is not extraordinary. And that is a really, really important point, because it can be learnt. So as I said, we all have it to a larger or smaller degree, but the main thing is it's the ability not to fold under pressure. And so therefore we want to be aware of this, that when we can do positive things and realistic things to support ourselves, to help us not fold under that pressure. So there are certain strategies that resilient people possess. And these are strategies we can all learn. It's not innate. We're not born with resilience. It's something we build up over time because of things that happen to us in our lives, and things occur and we build it up. So what is it about resilient people? Well, firstly, resilient people get it that SH1T happens. That is the nub of it. They actually get that, and they accept it as part of life. And they say, I know things happen, and it stops them doing that thinking of, why me? So how many of you have had something happen and you think, God, why me? Why is it always me? Because it's always that thing, isn't it? That criticism of yourself, saying, oh, never seems to happen to other people. It only happens to me. So not enough of us realize, and we think that we're the only things that things happen to, and we imagine everybody else is having the perfect life. And I think the thing I've always said to people who come to me for coaching, and they have a thing called comparison syndrome. They go, oh, I'm not doing as well as that person over there, or gosh, I never seem to be able to get a lucky break. and I don't see, it happening like it does for my friend over there. And that's often now, I think, as well, because we are so consumed, if you like, by social media. Everywhere you go, it's people looking at Instagram or Facebook, or how many followers do I have, or how many followers don't I have. So I think that's the other thing, that often people who are on that sort of why me side of the fence often think everybody else having a perfect life. Maybe they're not. That's the thing. And secondly, resilient people are very good at selecting where they focus their attention. So they'll typically manage to focus on the things that they can change, not the things they cannot change. So that's really important. Focus on the things you can change, not the things you cannot change. So the pandemic is a perfect example. We can't change the pandemic ourselves. We are at the will of the world with the pandemic. But how many people have you met during the pandemic who have had a very different approach to how they've dealt with it? So resilient people will go, okay, look, I can't change it. It's not great, obviously, and it's awful, but I'll focus on something that I can change and that I am in control of. So, for example, I had a client and she lost her job and she always wanted to learn a language. So in the pandemic, she has learned Spanish in a year and she's now doing conversational classes online. So she did something, she focused on something she could control, not what she couldn't control. And the other thing about it is as well, take criticism, for example. A resilient person doesn't take criticism personally. Of course, they don't like it either, but what they think is if somebody said to you, you were doing a job at work, say you were doing a presentation and you showed it to your boss and he said, or she said, yeah, that wasn't great, Jill. There was a few things there you could have improved on. If I was a less resilient person, I'd go away and think, oh, that's blooming typical. Why me? I've spent all that time, working on that presentation and I thought it was really good. And you think, oh, you become the self-critic. Whereas the resilient person will go, okay, that's not great, but what can I learn from that? What does that experience help me learn that I can use going forward? And the final strategy for resilience, which is, I think, the most important thing you have to think about, is you say to yourself, is what I'm doing helping me or harming me? Now, that is a really important question you need to ask yourself. Is what I'm doing helping me or harming me? So I'll give you an example. Say you lose a loved one, and initially your grief is so overwhelming. You just feel you can't cope. You just think this is never going to go away. So in the first instance, you have to give yourself permission to grieve, because the grieving process will help you. But if you then carry on for months and months and months, and you spend every waking hour of your day for the foreseeable future looking at photographs of that person, thinking about it to the point that it's all consuming, that is when you need to ask yourself, is this actually really helping me? And that is a good example, because a resilient person, of course, they'll feel the sense of loss too, but they know they need to move on with their lives, because if they stay in that grieving process internally, they're going to be ultimately harming themselves. So the thing is, we have to ask ourselves is, how can we build resilience? So there's many ways we can get better at being resilient. And I've just put a couple of things up on the screen there. And one of them is acceptance. So accepting there are certain things in life you cannot change. So acceptance is a very, very important part of building resilience. The second thing is, believe in your abilities. If you're having a bit of a bad day and you're feeling not great about something and you're feeling a bit sort of, oh gosh, that why me thing again, do something you're good at. Say you're a fabulous baker, go and make a cake and realize, actually, I am good at certain things. I am good at baking, or I am good at sewing, or I'm really good at running, and I'm going to go out and run, my fastest 5K. You know, it's that sort of thing of believe in your abilities. The other thing is be optimistic. So like the resilient person will focus on the positive, not the negative. And then I said, be kind to yourself. You know, am I helping or harming myself? And I think a lot of people have beaten themselves up over, you know, again, the pandemic, because it is so current, and saying, oh, I should have done more, I should have done this, I should have done that. Well, if you're at home and suddenly you find yourself working from home and it's not what you're used to, and you've got kids and you're looking after them and schooling, don't beat yourself up. You know, you can't do everything. You're not Wonder Woman or Wonder Man. You know, everybody, we've got a neighbour, he's a single father and he's had his kids and trying to run his company. You know, be kind to yourself. And keeping a journal is another thing that's quite good, because journaling some people find really useful. So I have quite a few clients who think journaling is something that helps them, because then they can look back and see, actually, that was a really good day and that worked for me there. And another thing is trying problem solving. You know, try and think of ways you can solve a problem rather than thinking it's insurmountable. And the last thing is establishing goals, which of course brings us on very nicely to what we're going to do now, which is we're going to have a live group coaching session. And I don't know any of your goals, but that doesn't matter. The process is that I can show you how you can actually set effective goals. So establishing goals seems maybe a bit of a funny one for building resilience, but actually the 3 Ps of personalization, permanence, and pervasiveness for managing upset is a concept that comes from Dr. Martin Seligman, and it is something to remember, because in the midst of an adversity, that while it involves us, it is not necessarily because of us. So we don't make the thing personal. It involves us, but it doesn't actually it's not us, it's not personal. And then that's the feeling of the challenge, the adversity, or the grief, or the crisis you're going through. It's not forever. It's not permanent. It will pass. You know, that's an important thing to remember. It is not permanent. I mean, the feeling of grief and loss will always be there, but the whole scenario around it, it's not permanent. And that could be loss of a job, loss of I'm talking about grieving for anything. It doesn't have to be a person. And it doesn't have to impact every area of our life, i.e. it doesn't have to be pervasive. So choosing to set a goal in the middle of turmoil probably seems like a bit of a funny thing to do, but don't set yourself a life-changing goal if something has happened. Don't set yourself a goal of, you know, moving house or I don't know, getting divorced if you've had a crisis. We're talking about small things. So it could be that you decide to, you know, learn to do a 5K, do couch to 5K, because that's something that's personal to you and you'd like to get fitter. And don't forget, because by permanence, definition of it is goals are future orientated. What we said with coaching, we're looking to the future, we're looking to our goal to the future. And so that means that that adversity then won't feel permanent, because you're going to be focusing on something else in the future. It could be like that lady I coached learning Spanish. She was totally focused on that, even though she'd lost her job. And then your adversity doesn't have to seep into every part of you. So you choose a goal that you feel will help you. So when I sent out, or Jane sent out the piece of paper, I said to you that we would do a live group coaching session. And this is where it's your turn now. If I was coaching you one-to-one as, you know, as a coach to you, I would be asking you questions and you would obviously be answering me. But because this is private and you're not going to tell me your answers, you will be making notes. So the first thing I just want to ask you is, can you please make sure you're in a quiet place with no distractions? Because I don't want you to miss out on any of the questions. And I will go at a fair pace, but I won't go too quickly that you're going to, you know, miss a question. And I will ask you to, make notes. That's really the main thing, is to make notes. Okay, so if you're all ready, is everybody ready? Thumbs up? Yeah, okay, great. Okay, so firstly, as I said, I don't know what your goal is. Could be to go to the moon, I don't know, but it's your goal, right? So the first thing I want to ask you is today, think of an area of your life that you want to work on in the next 30 minutes, where you want to improve how you're doing that. It could be time management, it could be getting fitter, it could be confidence because you want to pitch for a job and you're worried about your pricing, it could be anything, whatever it is for you. And it's likely going to be an area of concern for you at the moment. So it's going to be something, as I said, healthy eating, relationship with a partner, it could be anything. But the most important thing about what you've picked is it must be what we call a SMART goal. So that means it must be specific, it must be measurable, it must be achievable or attainable, it must be realistic, and it must be time bound. So you must have sort of an end time in frame. And it must really matter to you enough that you want to begin to do something to move forward in this area. And it's also vital, it's something you've got control over. So there's no point you saying to me, or not saying to me, but if you came to me and said, oh, hello, I want my husband to give up smoking, that's no good, is it? Because it's not his goal, is it? It's his goal, not your goal. And also goals need to be personal to you. They've also got to be possible. So I just mentioned the moon there. If you're not a trained astronaut like Tim Peake, you can't go up to the moon tomorrow, right? That's not going to happen. It's not going to be possible, is it? And it's also got to be, you know, something you can prioritize and work on. So possible, personal, and prioritize. And I said, it's not got to be for somebody else, not for somebody else. So would you mind just writing down now what you want to work on in one easy sentence for reference? So it might sound like my topic is time management and I want to find some more time for me. Or my topic is I want to do the couch to potato 5K because I want to be healthier or fitter or whatever. Has everybody got their topic written down? You all good? Excellent. Right. So now, thinking about that topic you've picked, I want you to go forward in time to the moment that everything is absolutely perfect in that area for you. So if you've picked running a 5K, you've got there, you've arrived, you can do it in less than 30 minutes, you've given yourself some sort of, limit, time limit, say. Just think about what is it, and it's 10 out of 10 for satisfaction. You're scoring 10 out of 10 now for this. What do you see happening that shows you that the issue you're working on now is resolved? What are you doing which shows you've achieved what you wanted? So it could be the 5K, and I'm just going to use this as a little example to give you the idea. It could be that you said, right, I'm going to run for cancer research, and I want to do it in 28 minutes because my best time so far has been 30. So how will you know you've achieved what you wanted to achieve? So what are people saying to you? What's your family? What are your friends? What are your work colleagues? What are they saying to you when you've got 10 out of 10 to what you've achieved, what you want to be? What do you think they're saying to you? And now, most importantly, what are you thinking and feeling now that this is resolved? How are you feeling? Proud, excited, ecstatic? And what's the benefit you've experienced now you've got to where you want to be? What's the benefit? How's it feeling? Think about the future. What's the benefit for you? And then think about this question. What would have happened if you'd done nothing at all? What impact has this had on other areas of your life now that you've achieved this, what you wrote down in your topic? What impact has that had for you? Now, can you think of all the different elements that you need to focus on in order to reach this 10 out of 10? So if you're running your 5K, it might be I need new shoes, I need running gear, I need to set out a running plan. So there's lots of little elements are going to be necessary for you to get to this 10 out of 10. Can I just ask, is the speed okay for you, or am I going too fast or too slow, or no, good? Okay, great, perfect. And then looking at those components you've just written down, which aspect of that is the first one that you think you need to address to get you going? And think about why you picked that aspect. Why did you pick that one to address first? And I think of the advantages of why that aspect. What's the advantages of picking that aspect first? So on a scale of 1 to 10 now, where 10 is perfect and 1 is you've actually just started working on this thing you're working on, where do you think you are now? So 1 is I've just started, or I'm thinking about it, and 10 is it's perfect. So where are you now in that 1 to 10, do you think, with this topic? And then the next thing to think about is, how will you know when you're 1 step closer? So how will you know when you've gone from a 3 to a 4 or a 5 to a 6, so on and so forth? What's happening that's telling you you've moved 1 step further to where you want to be? And what do you need to, when can you achieve this first step? When do you think you could achieve this first step? It needs to be something that's going to move you towards that magic number 10. And so it needs also to be something you'll do in the short term. So something that you can do in the next 2 or 3 weeks, maybe shorter, but not longer, right? So it needs to be something you think you could do in the next 2 to 3 weeks that's going to help you on that step forward. And would you mind please writing this down as an outcome, as if you've already achieved what you want to achieve? So you're going to say, I will be using my training bike for 20 minutes 3 times a week. Or it could be, I will be doing my meditation every day for 10 minutes in the morning or 10 minutes in the evening. So write it down as an outcome, but as if you've already achieved it. So I'm now running my 5K in 28 minutes. And you want to write in the positive. Alison's laughing. You want to write it in the positive. So, it's not, I don't want to be stressed. I want to be, it's a positive intention. And then how are you going to measure it when you get there? How are you going to measure that when you've got there? So now looking at that, if you're thinking it's impossible, but because, you know, it's just too much, you might need to break it down even further into something smaller for yourself to focus on in a shorter time. You might say, well, actually, if I could do that by next week, that might help me get to where I want to be in 2 weeks. So you might need to break it down a little bit more. And to be honest, we can all get a bit bored with our goals, can't we? I mean, we think, oh God, do I really have to do that? So if it's a bit boring at the moment, beef it up a bit. Think of, oh, what another way you could approach it. So say, you know, it's somebody, you know, at work, you might think, oh, how could I do something to help them, coach them a bit better, to help them with their job, because then we'd all benefit. So if you're bored, if it's a bit boring, think of another way around how you could do it. And then lastly, what do you want to achieve by the end of this session? So do you want to have a strategy in place? Do you want to have a plan in place? Do you want to have a couple of actions that you think, yeah, I'm going to do those in the next couple of weeks? And then if you note that down, that outcome you'd like, then that's going to make it clear for you at the end of the session goal, at the end of this conversation, if you're going to get where, if you've got exactly the outcome you want. So if you write that down, that would make you help. So in summary for that bit, basically you should be clear about your topic, which was at the beginning. You also want to know what finished looks like. So you've looked into the future and you've seen what finished looks like, and it's resolved. Your concerns about this area are all resolved, and you have a clear goal for progress in one aspect of what good looks like, you know, when I'm getting on my way to my number 10. And you have a clear goal now for the rest of this session that you're going to work on. Is everybody happy with that? We all good? Yeah, excellent. So what is happening in your life at the moment that tells you that this topic is an issue for you? What is it that's happening that tells you that this topic is an issue, and what's going on that's causing you concern? And what makes this an issue now particularly, as opposed to at any other time? Now think about that. What is missing? What do you want? Be very precise. It could be, I want to win this pitch I'm going for next week, and you had to put all the bits together to get that. So be precise. What is it that is missing, and be precise as, you know, about what it is, and describe those things that are missing in detail. Now think about the things that are going well. You know, what are the things that you're doing right that are helping you get to this goal? What are the good habits you've already got into in this area, but maybe you just need to carry on with those good habits to get you to where you want to be? So it could be, as I said at the beginning, if you're a bit apprehensive and you realise, actually, I need to get back into my relaxed state, I need to get into the habit of meditating for 5 or 10 minutes every day, because that's something I think would benefit me. Something that you can actually, it's a good habit to have that will help you with this. And then, sorry, think about the things you've already tried in this area to improve this area for you. So think about the things you've already tried. And for those things that worked for you, even if it was only for a short time, what exactly did you do? What were you doing that helped you with this at that time? What were you thinking at the time when you said, actually, you know, this is helping me? What were you thinking? And what kept you going? What kept you motivated with these things you did that worked for you? And what was the key thing that made it work? What was the key thing, do you think, that made it work? Now think of those things that didn't work. What wasn't successful? What were the things that didn't work for you, short or long term? Identify at what point that it stopped working. What happened with your plan? What happened when it all stopped working? And if you can remember, think about when did it exactly go wrong? When it didn't work? When did it exactly go wrong? And what was the first thing that triggered this setback? You know, what was going on around you? What were the circumstances? So you think about that now. What would have made the biggest difference and made it successful? What do you think would have made the biggest difference? And what about these previous attempts? Have you learned anything from them, from the experience that you could use going forward? You know, the things that didn't work, but you think, well, actually that worked. So maybe if I combine those two, that might work for me. And what did you learn about yourself in that situation? And what do you think it is that was absolutely crucial? What would be crucial to your success this time? And now you need to think about the obstacles that you might prevent you from hindering you moving forward now. What's the major obstacle? What's the really major obstacle that you can think of? And why is it, in what way is it an obstacle for you? So looking closely at that obstacle, what is it about it that actually stops you, gets in the way? And I don't mean, don't be general like, oh, time. What do you mean by time? You know, is it time to prepare your presentation, or is it time for yourself? I don't be just like, oh, time. You've got to think of a reason why time is an issue, time management is an issue. Or for example, if it's, you know, oh, well, the issue is my boss. Well, in what way is it your boss is your issue or your colleague is your, what is the actual nub of the problem, not just general? And have you tried to get past these barriers in the past? Have you tried, you know, if you did, how were you successful when you came up against an obstacle? And how did you manage it then? When was the last time you had something similar and you were successful? And what did you learn from that last time you were successful? Are any of those skills, when you were successful, are they transferable to what you're working on now? Is there something you think, experience, and think, oh, actually that worked then, that could possibly work now? Are any of them transferable? And what still needs to be done to overcome this barrier? What skills, strengths, resources have you got that you could use here? They could be skills you have from work, home, even something you do like building resilience when you do your running plan. You could transfer that. How did I do that? You know, what did I do there that worked that I could now transfer onto this current situation? And what support will you have that's all important? You know, you might need the support of a friend, or you might need the support of a partner or a work colleague. So what sort of support do you think you could have that would be important? So now what you've done there is you've had an issue with the goal for this session. You know what's going on and what's not going on for you. You've highlighted, you know, what you've done about it so far and what successes you've had in the past. You've thought about some obstacles. So now we have to think of a way we can move forward. So thinking about things you could do, and this is not a list of actions, this is thinking of anything. It could be anything, write down whatever comes into your head. You're not going to select anything at the moment. You're just going to think about what could you do. So brainstorm now a few ideas. So for example, what ideas might you move closer to your goal? For example, it might be, you know, if I wasn't answerable to anybody. What if you could wave a magic wand and have anything? Nothing to stop you. What could you do if you decided you didn't have to live with any consequences of what you were going to do? What if you weren't scared of anything? Trying something different? And what about if you totally believed in yourself and your abilities, which we went back to the baking the cake, right? So something you know you're really good at. What if you really believed in yourself and anything was possible? What options could you do to get you closer to where you want to be? And maybe think about what a friend would say or a partner, you know, what would they say to you? And just refer back to what you were talking about in our reality check about what has worked for you, what hasn't worked for you, and what you've learned from those actions. So think about where the ideas were good. That might give you some options now to think about, even if they're a little bit outside the box. And also you need to think about the things that didn't go according to plan, because that it could generate new ideas for you now. You know, so X didn't work, but maybe Y would. So be totally free and creative with all these thoughts you're having now. So look at your list now of what your ideas are that you could help you move forward. Is there anything missing? What other ideas might be linked to the ones you've already written down that you haven't thought about? Maybe look at a couple of more possibilities. Just have a little couple of seconds there just to think. There might be 2 or 3 more possibilities. Now, can you look a little bit more critically at that list? Which of your ideas feels right? Which of them will be the easiest, quickest, most challenging or most exciting thing to get you going? So if it's the easiest thing, the low-hanging fruit, well, actually, you know, I really just need to go to the shop and pick up some shoes. That's the easiest thing I can do first if you're doing your 5K analogy, right? So what looks right? What feels best for you to do? What do you think the best thing is for you to do? And most importantly, what will move you closer to where you want to be? So which of those things you've written down on your list there would move you closer to where you want to be with this topic you picked? So check on that list now, and whatever you decide to have a look at and decide, okay, I think I could use that as an idea. Are you sure it's going to move you one step forward to where you want to be? Is it the right one you've picked? Is it the one that's going to get you to step 5 or 6 from 4 to 5, 5 to 6? So now we're coming towards the end. So we just need to get those ideas or actions into be more specific to ensure you're successful with moving forward with this goal. So exactly what do you need to do to put those actions into practice? What are the actual specific steps you need to take? And again, if the step seems a little bit big, break it down. You know, break it down into a smaller step. If you think, oh, that's a bit much to think about now, just split it back down into a manageable step. I like to use the analogy of a 1,000-piece jigsaw puzzle. So somebody comes along, gives you a 1,000-piece jigsaw puzzle, and you go, lovely picture on the box, throw all the pieces out onto the table, and you go, good God, I'm never going to do this. It's impossible. But what do? You pick the edges. You go, okay, I'll do all the edges first. And then you do all the edges, and then you do, so that's a bit when I say about breaking it down. Think about it, don't overwhelm yourself. So think about also what might stop you taking these steps, as we said. What are the barriers in the way? How are you going to negotiate those barriers? So can you write down some specific actions where you know you'll be able to negotiate those barriers? How am I going to get around those obstacles? And if you've written something down now and you're already thinking, oh God, I can't do it, the 1,000-piece jigsaw puzzle, break it into smaller steps and say, well, how can I compartmentalize, I can't say that word, compartmentalize things into a more, smaller areas that I can deal with. And who else should be involved in this? Is there anybody else you need help with, or does somebody else need to know about what you're up to and what this goal is, and how can you involve them? Can they help you? And looking at those actions that you've written down now, it might be 1, it might be 2, it might be 3. When do you know you're going to get this done by? So be specific. Say, I know by tomorrow night at 5 o'clock, it's Friday, I know by 5 o'clock on Friday, I will have done blah, 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 X, Y, Z, because then you've given yourself a deadline, a specific time. And is it realistic? So there's no point saying, I'm going to do something by 5 o'clock tomorrow when you know actually you've got meetings all day. So that's not going to work. So you need to be specific and write down how realistic a timing it is you can do that. And now you need to ask yourself, how strong is your intention to take those steps? Where are you on a scale of 1 to 10? 3 is blah, I'm not going to do it, am I? 8 is good. You might think, oh yeah, I'm an 8. So how would you rate your commitment and motivation to getting these first little steps done out of a scale of 1 to 10? And how strong is your intention? Think about how strong your intention is and what it'll really mean. Remember, you look to that future focus of what it's all going to be like when it's all tickety-boo and perfect and 10 out of 10. So how strong is that intention now to get there? And finally, think about the benefits. What are the benefits going to be to you when you actually take these actions? How is it going to help? It could be time management, and you'll say, God, you know what? I feel so less stressed now because I've got my time under control. It could be whatever it is. What's the benefit going to be? And then who else would benefit? Now that we're all working from home, if you're a stressed out bunny, then perhaps, your family will benefit because you've got your time management under control and you're not going to be so stressed, and that benefits everybody in the family. And so don't forget, you've got to congratulate yourself too. So if you took these steps now that you've written down and you do them and you get there, what are you going to say to yourself? How will you be feeling? Pride, sense of achievement, delight because it's one of those things you've been meaning to do for so long and you've achieved it now. And finally, and this might be the most difficult question of all really, what have you learnt about yourself today, do you think? Did anything surprise you about yourself? Or did, when you thought about what you need to do, did it throw up anything you just, gosh, I never even thought about that, but it was something I completely never even, you know, legislated for? So that's it. You should have now your topic, realization of what it will look like in the future, knowing how you're going to get there, what actions you're going to put in place, and you've actually made a specific plan. So you've done a SMART goal. You've got a specific, measurable, achievable, realistic, time bound. That is the important thing. T for time bound, because you've put a time on it and you're going to take those actions. Obviously, if I was with you on a one-to-one basis, it'd be very different, because I wouldn't be doing all the talking, by the way. I'd only do about 30%, you'd be doing 70%. But because this is a group case and I don't know what your goal is, I can't actually ask you specific things about it. But hopefully that process you've just been through has taught you something about how you can set a goal for yourself, and I hope it was helpful.
That's great, Jill. Thank you so much. Challenging, I think, is one thing that I would write down. We've got a couple of minutes left where people can give some feedback. I think I think you've answered Lucy's question, which is kind of, is this the pace you normally work out? I mean, obviously you're giving us a demonstration, but
yeah,
just
yeah, I mean, I would give you time to think, because the whole point of coaching is, as I said, I'm like the signpost. I know you have all the answers, but it's trying to lead you, by questioning. So I mean, it depends. I mean, it depends on the person. If I have somebody who's quite pacey and they answer immediately, then I'll be pacey. So, but because of the group situation, and I don't know how other people found it,
Yeah. I don't know if anybody wants to chip in. It's open forum now, so if you put your hand up and open your mic, just anybody wants to have a go. I had one observation just going through, and it's one thing you said earlier on, which was be kind to yourself, which is like don't beat yourself up. But for me, I think one of the things I learned is that there's a fine line between being kind to myself and absolutely letting myself off the hook, which doesn't get me anywhere. Would you say anything on bridging that barrier between, just procrastinating because you're being kind and getting going?
Yeah, I suppose when I say be kind to yourself, I'm thinking more about, when you're building resilience, that you don't feel, don't beat yourself up over something if you're not, to build resilience, it's a slow process. It's not something you can do today or tomorrow. So the whole point is, if you set yourself some goals, or you even think about that thing, going back to that grieving, give yourself permission to grieve. That's what I meant about being kind to yourself, but don't let it all consume you. But yes, I mean, if I was coaching you, you would have particular things you said you're going to do when I see you the next 2 weeks' time. If you came to me and said, oh, I never did it, I'd ask you, very gently, mind you, I'd just say, oh, so what happened? And then that would, give you that barrier. And that barrier might then realize, actually, I'm a procrastinator and I need to do something about procrastinating. And that's why, so being kind to yourself isn't saying, oh yeah, come on, I'm just going to go for a walk and I'm not going to actually do anything. I'm just going to not bother today. That's what I mean is that being kind to yourself is to, but as I said, as a coach, then I would keep you on track and say, well, okay, now you told me, Jane, when I saw you 2 weeks ago that you were going to do this, what happened? Why did you find that such a difficult thing to do? And you'd find out by questioning. So,
yeah.
As I said, it's a difference, but I'm glad. Oh, thank you very much. I'm having some lovely comments here, and that just shows you how powerful that is in a group. I have known nothing about you. I don't even know what your goal is. So if you found that helpful in a group as a one-to-one thing, coaching is incredibly powerful.
Yeah, yeah, motivation is a theme that's coming up on the chat quite a lot, and nicely people have found this helpful. If anybody has anything else they want to contribute at the moment, then now is your chance. Other than that, I think with Jill, we said we will give you an opportunity to just, and we will be publicising this, but your contact details, if anybody wants to follow this up and have a look at some other resources, we can do that.
Okay, so I'll just give you very quickly this, if it will work. Never seems to want to work, and I want it to work. Oh, there it is. So because of the pandemic, I actually came up with this taste of coaching idea, because I think some people might, for financial reasons as well, obviously, but they might decide that they want to try coaching, but they're not sure they want to commit to the longer term of every 2 weeks. So this taste of coaching, I've done 5 videos, and they look at focusing on your priorities, setting effective goals. So you'd have your own workbook. I do a thing on resilience with really good resilience exercises. I talk about comfort to stretch zone, which is, again, all part of building resilience, is learning to go from your comfort to your stretch zone, because when you stretch yourself and you survive the situation, you think, oh, and then you get a bit more resilient. And then you also get a 45-minute one-on-one session with me afterwards. And I've given a rate for you people there, you lovely people. So you've got a special rate if you're interested in that. Then you can see I've got a 3-month package. That would be somebody I'm working with at the moment now. Their big thing is trying to do work-life balance because they're working from home. And we're doing a 6-month package because it's taking quite time to get used to that. But something might be different for you for a 3-month package. It might be work. Or and then, I mean, if somebody just wanted a one-to-one and just wanted to try it out, I'm very happy to do that as well. So you can email me. My website went live last night at 11 p.m. by the way. So if there's any glitches, don't worry, they'll be fixed. But it might be better in the first instance just to email me, because I'm not sure. There was an issue this morning before we came on here with my button for the send me a message. And also, if you're interested, I've got some social media platforms which you're very welcome to follow me on. And other than that, I think that's all I have to say.
Thank you, Jill. I'm just challenging and very useful and interesting as well. Thank you.
Oh, you're welcome.
If anybody else wants to say anything, and then we will finish dead on time. So thank you, everybody. Thanks for being guinea pigs, and let us have some feedback. That would be really useful. Thank you. Okay.
I was going to say, if anybody has a question they didn't want to ask on the forum, just email me. I'm happy to answer it. So if there was something personal you didn't want to talk about in public, just send me an email.
Okay. Thank you. Let everybody go.
They're all going.
Yeah, stay on, Jill.